You notice it mid-conversation. Something isn't clicking, not loudly, not obviously, but enough to make you feel it. You're talking, they're listening. But somehow, you're not being understood. You say you're tired, and they pause. Not with concern, with confusion. Because the kind of tired you're talking about isn't visible. It's not from doing too much. It's from never being able to switch off. And right there, you feel it. This isn't just a conversation anymore, this is translation. You try again. You explain that your mind doesn't rest, that even silence feels loud, that even when nothing is happening, everything is happening, that your thoughts don't come one at a time anymore. They come all at once, layered, overlapping, relentless, and they say it. Then just put your phone down. And for a second, you almost believe them. Like maybe it really is that simple. Like maybe you're overcomplicating everything. Like maybe the problem is you, but deep down, you know it's not. Because it was never just a phone. It's the world you grew up in. They stepped into it. You were built inside it. And that changes everything. You don't just scroll, you absorb, you compare, you measure yourself constantly. Before your day even starts, you've already seen 10 people doing better than you. And you're still in bed, scrolling, watching, thinking. And somehow you already feel behind. Behind in life, behind in success, behind in becoming someone. They never had to wake up feeling late to their own life. They had time to grow into themselves, to figure things out quietly, to fail without an audience. You feel like you have to prove yourself before you even understand yourself. That's the pressure. And it doesn't turn off. Even when you're resting, it feels like you're wasting time. Even when you're trying, it feels like it's not enough. Even when you're doing okay, something reminds you that okay isn't enough anymore. So when you say you're overwhelmed, it's not a moment. It's a baseline. They tell you to focus. Pick one thing, stay consistent. And you want to. You really do. You want clarity, you want direction, you want something that feels certain, but everything changes too fast. What works today won't matter tomorrow. What matters now didn't even exist a few years ago. Careers shift, trends disappear, skills expire. The rules keep changing and no one tells you when they do. So you move, you adapt, you pivot. You try things, you leave things. You start again, again, and again. And from the outside, it looks like you're confused, like you lack direction, like you can't commit. But what they don't see is you're responding, not wandering. You're adjusting to a world that refuses to stay still. Standing still feels like falling behind, and falling behind feels permanent. So you keep moving, even when you're not sure where it leads. They stayed, you shift, they built slowly, you rebuild constantly. And both of you think the other one is doing it wrong. That's where everything starts to disconnect. Then it gets deeper. You say you need space. You say you're setting boundaries. You say you can't keep giving the same energy anymore. And something changes in their face. Not anger, not even disappointment. Just a quiet resistance. Because in their world, you push through. You don't stop. You don't step back just because something feels heavy. You carry it. You survive it. You keep going. That's what strength looked like to them. But you've seen what that kind of strength costs. You've seen people function but feel nothing. You've seen people succeed but feel empty. You've seen people hold everything together for years and then suddenly break in ways no one expected. And you refuse to live like that. So yes, you pause. Yes, you step back. Yes, you walk away sometimes. Yes, you choose yourself. Not because you can't handle life, but because you don't want to lose yourself inside it. And that's the difference that they learn to ignore. You learn to notice. They learn to suppress. You learn to process. They call it overthinking. You call it awareness. Same behavior, different meaning. That's why it never fully connects, because you're not speaking from the same internal world. Then comes the part they don't see at all. They think you have it easier, more access, more freedom, more options, and maybe on the surface it looks that way, but they don't see what it costs to have all of that. They don't feel what it's like to compare your life to thousands of people before breakfast. They don't understand what it means to grow up being watched, even when you're alone. They don't know what it feels like to question yourself in real time while the world keeps moving like you're supposed to have it figured out already. They made mistakes quietly. Yours stay. Saved, replayed, judged long after you've changed. Even when you've grown, even when you're different, even when you've moved on. Your past doesn't disappear, it stays searchable. You don't just live your life, you observe it while you're living it. And that changes how you think, how you act, how you see yourself, how careful you become, how aware you become. And that pressure never really leaves. So when they say we handled it better at your age, you don't argue anymore. Not because they're right, but because you know they're measuring a different reality. Because how do you explain something they never had to experience? And how do they understand something they were never shaped by? That's where the real gap is. Not in intelligence, not in effort, in experience. Completely different environments producing completely different minds. And both of you are trying to explain your reality like it's universal. But it's not. When they say work hard, they mean stability, security, something that lasts. When you hear work hard, you hear pressure, uncertainty, a system that doesn't promise anything back. Same words, different weight. That's why it keeps missing. That's why it never fully lands. Because you're both listening, but for completely different meanings. They're listening to guide you. You're speaking to be understood. And those are not the same conversation. So now, when you feel it happening again, that moment where your words stop making sense to them, you slow down. Not because you've given up, but because something in you has shifted. You don't need to prove your reality anymore. You're already living it. And maybe understanding doesn't come from explaining better. Maybe it comes when both sides stop trying to fix each other and start trying to actually see each other. Not correct, not compare, just see. But until that happens, you'll keep having conversations that almost connect but never fully do. And maybe the hardest part is, you're both trying, just in ways the other doesn't recognize. And that's why it still feels like you're not being understood.